Okay, so to address the elephant in the room, a lot of people have been saying that we're actually father and son. I think it's in part because we share a first name. How ridiculous is that?
I have no son.
My name is Warren, and for as long as I can remember, I've loved wrestling. Through this interview series, I plan to shed a light on all things pure Vanguard wrestling. We'll talk to wrestlers, people behind the scenes, and fans. And yeah, we'll gossip. This is the Pure Vanguard Minute. Welcome to the Pure Vanguard Minute, where we talk about all things Pure Vanguard wrestling. I'm with my guest today, Commissioner Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Wish it was under better circumstances, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, let's get right into it. Tell us about, first, before we get started, tell us about your role with PVW.
So I got called into Vanguard at the beginning. There was a need for a family-friendly wrestling promotion in the area that would focus on good psychology, good matches, and they also knew that when you had a lot of people together, you have a lot of personalities, and there's a need to have some kind of law and order. So they asked me to come on board to do that. They asked me to. They knew that I had a way with trying to be fair but firm and consistent.
Tell us about how Head of Talent Relations Nick Mitchell got involved in the promotion.
So Nick was one of my best and one of my worst finds. I met Nick at, far before he was the corporate guy. I met him at a wrestling show and we started to talk, and he can be charming and he could be one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. And I liked his energy. So we had an opening. I saw some potential in Nick. I did not mention that position at one point, but I said, hey, how would you like to come in as a referee? And he excelled. I may not like him now, but I cannot take away from him. He excelled as a referee. He was really good with the talent. And at some point, I went to the commission and I said, we have an opening. I think this guy would be perfect for it. And I will never forget giving him that phone call and saying, you can have this position if you want it.
I was speaking to superfan Dale today. We did an interview, and he came up with a really interesting name for Head of Talent Relations Nick Mitchell. He called him Dick Mitchell.
I'm not really big into making fun of people, but I know Mr. Dale too. I've known him for years, and he is a super fan for sure. And it seems like it might fit. He's not doing the work. He's doing what corporations have done for years. They find the mom and pop that has built something that's really special, and they try to take it over with a stroke of a pen. Not going to happen.
How do you feel about the Empire saying that you're too old, you're washed up, and just generally not good enough to be in the business of wrestling in general?
I don't know if the Empire is a religious organization, but they really should thank God that they're dealing with me in my 50s and not in my 20s or 30s, because they would not be walking today.
From an outside perspective, PVW appears to be completely lawless. What do you say to critics that say you don't have any control over the comings and goings and the day-to-day workings of Pure Vanguard Wrestling?
I would say, to a certain extent, I can understand why they see that. We are supposed to be a promotion of checks and balances, and I have believed in the commission since the day it was formed. However, more and more it seems that they are siding with the bad guys. And when the law no longer seems to represent the common person, I can see why the people are getting upset. I am getting frustrated, which is why I called on an old friend, the Vindicator. Because the Vindicator, he wants what is best. But whereas I am tied to the commission and I am bound by their rules and decisions, The Vindicator is not tied to anyone. He's tied to justice. So he made it clear at the last show, he was just there to observe. And if the Empire did the right thing, he made it clear that if they did the right thing, he would leave and he would never set foot in the Vanguard ring. But if they did the wrong thing, he was going to dig foxholes, he was going to be entrenched, and he was going to be there until it was over.
Who is the Vindicator?
The Vindicator wears a mask for a simple reason. As you may know, going back to the founding of this country, we've had a couple ways for justice to happen. You started off with a militia, and the militias became the formal armies, and then you ended up with sheriffs and the police force. But throughout history, there have been times where the people that were put in control, put in power to keep people safe, didn't. And they worked for, just like the people down in the coal mines in what was it, 1919, I think it was, where the sheriffs opened fire on the innocent workers who were striking and their families. You needed somebody like the Vindicator to come out. So he wears his mask, he lives in the shadows, he spends his times in caves, and he comes out when the common person needs him, because that's who he does not care about dollars, he does not care about championship, he does not care about wins and losses, he cares about honor, duty, and integrity. So when I saw that my hands were being tied, I called the guy that nobody can control.
Well, obviously, the Vindicator's identity is a complete mystery to all of us.
I'm not a big fan of bones being broken, but sometimes it's necessary.
What kind of sounds do you think Nick Mitchell would make as his bones are being broken?
I don't know. I'd like to think he would squeal like a pig.
For the record, I think that Nick would make very effeminate noises as his bones are being broken.
Fair enough. I would have to think that he really can't handle a whole lot, you know. I'd love to get him at the ranch, you know, and like I said, he used to visit us. He never did anything for work. Mind you, know, he had no problem watching me dig trenches and running irrigation, building buildings. But maybe if he ever picked up a tool.
He wouldn't be such a tool.
The next show is called Betrayal. That's an obvious reference to the actions of Nick Mitchell in the last show. Why should people buy a ticket?
Well, it depends on where you are. I guess if you're a fan of the Empire, buy a ticket. You can see them. I'm sure they're going to try to gloat. If you're a fan of Law and Order, buy a ticket because the sheriff's back. And what the sheriff can't do, the Vindicator can do.
Will Nick Mitchell still have a role in PVW going forward?
Unfortunately, yes, because whereas Vanguard is not for sale, Commissioner Doc is not for sale. Some of the votes on the commission apparently are. If they're not for sale, they're for rent. So I had a meeting with them not too long ago, and they made it clear that there would not be enough votes to remove him from his position. Interestingly enough, they also assured me there would not be enough votes to remove me from my position. So the two of us are going to be stuck with each other, at least for a while. And it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So I have a note here that the Empire actually sent a gift to the Vanguard Ranch. Can you elaborate on what that gift might have been?
They did. You know, they're really sweet people, I guess, when they want to be, because I had worn out my ring boots and I needed a new pair. So my custom boot maker came through. The problem is, when he gave me the gift, I didn't have a shoe shine rag. So the Empire was gracious enough to send me one of their own.
Oh, that is kind.
It is. It's you know, they are wonderful people, I guess, in the sense that, but I think it was self-serving though, because they probably want a clean boot when it's stomping a mud hole in them.
Okay, so to address the elephant in the room, a lot of people have been saying that we're actually father and son. I think it's in part because we share a first name. How ridiculous is that?
I have no son.
Okay, any last words before we wrap this interview up?
Nick, you've had a chance to show the world who you are, and you came up lacking. I'm telling you, if you want to avoid a world of hurt, you can show the people what you can be. Care about people. Care about integrity. Or face me.
I'd like to thank Commissioner Doc for joining me today for the Pure Vanguard Minute. The next show, Betrayal, takes place on October 10th at the Bristol Boys and Girls Club. If you'd like to buy tickets, go to pvw.world.